Murders are always gruesome in tragic events, no matter where or when they happen. But some murders are worse than others, and when they go unsolved, it becomes more traumatic to the family of the deceased. One such case is the still unsolved murder of Katarzina Zawada, a Polish college student who was maliciously murdered and skinned in 1998. Katarzina was a student at Jagiellonian University located in nearby Krakow, where she was studying religion. She had been suffering from depression after the death of her father in 1996, which prompted her to change degree fields in college 2 times before landing in religious studies. On November 12, 1998, Katarzina never showed up to her usual appointment at the psychiatric clinic and wasn't heard from for the rest of the day. That evening, her mother tried reporting her as missing, but the police told her she needed to wait 24 hours before filing a missing persons report. The next year, in January, a whole human skin was discovered caught in the propeller of a pusher tugboat called the Elk in the Vistula River by the crew, and DNA testing proved it to belong to Katarzina Zawada. Later that month, one of her legs was discovered in the same river. The skin suit was missing the arms and face, except for a single ear that was still attached. Katarzina's skin had been removed with surgical precision and prepared to be worn as a suit, which was similar to another case in the area already. Police first thought that a young man by the name of Vladimir W. had committed her murder as well. After finding his father beheaded and skinned in the basement of their home in the same manner, his face prepared as a mask which he wore and tricked his partially blind grandfather into thinking he was his father for an entire day. No evidence was shown to link the 2 cases, though, despite the 2 being in the same town and within decent proximity of each other. This young man was disturbed, but he kept his murdering within his own family and not strangers. A year later, the case was formally dropped due to lack of evidence and a body, although some investigators did spend their free time looking into credible leads wherever they could. Despite their valiant efforts, any leads they found always led to nothing. In 2012, the case was handed over to an X-Files team who specialized in solving cold cases. Katarzina's body was exhumed and a new autopsy was performed thanks to advancements in forensic technology. They were able to do numerous tests and follow up on leads that were deemed dead ends, where they finally got some new evidence to follow. After having the leg examined by Professor Duarte Nino Vieira, a Portuguese specialist in forensics and a UN expert in the field of signs of torture on the human body, he confirmed that Katarzina was tortured before being killed and that a unique style of martial arts was possibly used against her. Contact scans also concurred with Professor Vieira's findings, revealing painful and lethal incisions on her groin, neck, and chest, as if being kidnapped wasn't bad enough. The poor girl was also tortured to death and possibly even skinned alive. The style of martial arts was never disclosed, keeping it as vital evidence in the case. We've all seen one version or another of the Karate Kid and the commercial ads for the Netflix series Cobra Kai based on the original movies, plus the UFC and Bellator fighting competitions. It's no surprise that martial arts were used as a torture method, as it can be a brutal method of inflicting pain on another person. The main suspect of the case was Robert J., who had been a person of interest back in 1999, but nothing had ever been done back then. He is easily qualified to have been Katarzina's murderer, given his knowledge, relationship with the victim, and previous employers, not to mention his training in the same form of martial art. He was a creepy guy for sure. He worked for a dissecting lab that specifically dealt with human corpses, so he had the know-how on bodily dismemberment right there. He also worked for the Krakow Institute of Zoology, that specialized in animal skin processing, from which he was terminated after he killed all the rabbits in the unit. He claims he had no idea why he did that at all. Was it a true blackout moment or just a facade to keep from getting incriminated? In 2017, he was arrested and his shower frame and bathtub were taken in for further testing after traces of human blood were found. Letters and eyewitnesses showed he knew Katarzina. He fit the psychological profile to a T. He was seen visiting her grave numerous times. He was known for harassment towards women. He knew the victim and knew the particular martial arts style used to torture her. His arrest was due to a letter from a friend of his to the police, but the letter has been kept secret and under tight security. He was charged with aggravated murder of particular cruelty and is still in prison as the investigation continues to this day. Despite the mounting evidence against him, he claims to not know who Katarzina Zawada is. If he didn't know her, then why was he visiting her grave specifically? Most people don't visit the graves of someone they didn't know existed, let alone visit it multiple times. The exception to that would be war veterans who died in service or as a way to be respectful to men and women who defended our homes during times of crisis and suffering on national holidays. He's still in prison to this day as further investigations are underway. More evidence is being gathered. 2 decades later, any remains of her body still have not been found, only the skin from her corpse and one of her legs retrieved from the river, as well as a piece of clothing. Katarzina's murder is still technically unsolved, but headway is reportedly being made in the case even to this day. Katarzina's murder is described as the most gruesome in Polish history, given the circumstances in which she endured during her torture and death. It's a wonder it didn't reach the ears of the US. Until 2012, when the investigation was formally reopened, we can all only hope that her mother is given peace with the closing of her daughter's case as it is finally solved. What did you think of this story? Let us know in the comment section below.